First, just like introduce yourself. Like, tell me a little bit, like who you are.
Um, I'm Fallon, and I mean, what all do you want to know?
I get you said you're from Colorado.
Well, I'm from actually from California, and
Okay.
moved here recently. And I was in law, retired, and I work for Smiles Through Cars now, and we take exotic cars to children that have disabilities and cancer, and we use a lot of the money to help with their families and bring smiles to the children and families.
Okay, so did you watch this show? Like, have you been a Love After Lockup fan for a while?
No, so I mean, the funny story with that is that my friend in New York, she watches it, and
Mhm.
she was like, "You have to see this season. It's incredible." And so I was like, all right, because she was just telling me about one of her favorite couples, and it was the couple that I guess they knew each other in high school, and they were just he I guess like was always cheating on like everybody,
Mhm.
and they were looking at getting married, and he kept like just taking money out of her bank account, and I was like interested in that one, and because I was like, that sounds interesting, and so I started watching, and then I started like noticing like Bianca and Daniel, and everybody was like, oh, she's awful, she's this, like, or and just kind of back and forth. And I was telling my friend, I'm like, I think he's gaslighting her. And at first, and she was like, no, no, like Daniel's amazing. And I was like, I guess, like I was kind of on the fence at
Yeah.
first. But I only watched like two shows of it, like two episodes, and I didn't really make a deciding decision on
Yeah.
either, because I used to work like when I was on break from college. I used to work for a show, not even the show, it was a shop in LA that worked on cars, and they had a very famous show, and so I knew it's semi-scripted, and so I knew that there's things that aren't really true.
Mhm.
So I just figured that was kind of maybe one of the shows. But I only sent a message to Daniel, saying like, because I was in law, like I just said, hey, super proud of you for like how you're doing now.
Mhm.
That was it. After that, he reached back out to me, just
When
saying,
would
hey, okay.
when would you say this was around? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It was the end of November.
Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't to like hit on him, get with him, nothing like that.
Just show support,
Yeah,
pretty much.
show support. And I think because of my type of my Instagram, it's not flooded. I'm sure you've seen it. It's not flooded with pictures of me.
Mhm.
It's it's a lot of like politics, my cars, things like that. So it's not look at me,
Mhm.
to help people. And he responded back, like, thank you. I wished him, like I said, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Um, that's when he like sent me this like the voice messaging thing, just telling me how well he's doing, just really talking about himself. I told him a little bit more about me, like what I do, what I was doing with law, what I do now with
Mhm.
the charity, because I'm an advisor for it. He said, like, can I call you? I said, sure. Thought it had to do more about like what he's doing in life. It
Mhm.
wasn't. That's when like he sent me like his NDA, which was crazy.
And that was just like randomly, or were you guys like talking? Because like when I looked at the messages, it just seemed like he just sent it out of nowhere.
He did. He really did. He was like, well, like since you're, I told him more about what I was doing in the field of law, and he was like, well, since you do all this, he's like, here's this,
Oh,
and he was just like, here, and I'm thinking, you just broke your NDA, like,
That's a
more
good
than you know.
point. I bet he was trying to get some like free lawyer advice since he knew about like your history or that's I feel like that's why he was trying to probably hand his contract over.
Yeah. He actually point blank said, can you look over this? Because I want to see if I can get more money.
Mm-hmm.
And that one threw me for a loop. And I mean, I want to say we talked for about, 3-4 hours that night. And during that time, he was bashing Bianca. I mean, to another level. Just talking about like her body, telling me about, he said, I don't know if you watched the show, and I told him like just what I told you, bashing her body, telling me what's going to happen in like the next season, told me everything about that, like what happened on like I guess like I don't know really how the show works, but what's going to happen like in the next like episode of the next season, in which I'm not in our contract, so I can definitely tell you. And he said, you're going to hate me. You're going to hate me. And at that point, I'm thinking, I don't know you, but it is what it is. So he told me about that. He told me like after the show ended, why he didn't, I guess, go to his cousin's wedding, and what he did in Vegas, which was he was laughing about that.
I'm curious, what did he tell you? Because I've heard, from another source, he was claiming that he wanted to go hang out with his cousin Robert. He admitted to you that he went to hang out with other girls in Vegas?
Yes. So what happened is that I guess after the show ended, he actually said like things were great between him and Bianca. Like things were like really good. And he said that then he just kind of started getting over it. He just got tired of her. And, I said, well, what does that mean? And he's like, like every relationship kind of has their ending. And I was like, well, what? And he's like, no, she was like pushing me, I just needed to make more money. And, and I was like, well, that kind of happens, And I was like, well, wait. And I stopped him and I said, well, from my understanding, like she had a lawsuit. And he was like, yeah, he's like, she wasn't giving me any money though. And I just kind of stopped. That's like, well, yeah, she doesn't need, I'm thinking to myself, she doesn't need to give you her money. Like you need to work. And it seemed to me, just my opinion, he kind of wanted her money. And because he wasn't getting that money, he was kind of tired of her. And so his cousin invited her to be a bridesmaid, and she was super happy. She felt kind of honored, to be a part of that family, because they were just, at first she just didn't feel like it, I guess. And so that's what he was telling me. And I guess she was like really happy. And so he said that when she got invited, he got pushing and pushing off, like to ask his parole officer. And he said he just didn't think it was going to happen, like he could go to that. Then she kept pushing him to go. And he said he went finally like a week before, because he was just putting it off. He said he didn't want to go, and 2, he didn't think it would get approved. He said that finally when he went, the parole officer said, yeah, you can go to your cousin's wedding. And then he said, well, wait, if I can get approved for this, can I actually just go to Vegas instead? And I guess the parole officer said, yeah, you can go to that instead. So he got approved for that instead, and just let Bianca go to his own family's thing by herself. That's how awful that is. And he's like, he's laughing the whole time telling me this, And so he said why Bianca was driving him there. He said, yeah, he's like, I'm being rude to her. He's like, quote unquote, I didn't give a shit. He's like, I wanted to like push her away from me. He's like, I was hoping that when I got back that she would just break up with me. And I said, well, why? And he's like, I don't care. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I can't remember if he said like we were getting a place or we just got in the place. And he said, but he was like he said at that point he was already on the lease or he's getting on the lease. But then she couldn't kick him like out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he didn't care. That at that point he could bring girls over if he wanted. And I'm just sitting here listening to this person. I'm like, okay. And he said he went to Vegas and he was meeting girls, like telling them like who he was. And yeah, like this is like like it's a big, like it's a big deal. And I like kind of laughed, and I think he got me laughing, thinking like I thought it was funny, but it was like more or less like you're not a big deal. But it is what it is. And he was like, yeah, he's like, but he point blank told me he slept with 3 different girls in Vegas. And I was like, well, were you and Bianca broken up at that point? He was like, no, I was going to break up with her when I got back. And I was like, all right. And he's like, he said that they were sleeping in separate rooms at that point and they weren't, really together. And I said, okay. And he said when he got back, they were fighting like cats and dogs. He said then that's when he got back, he called the producers. They showed up and he said the producers had him go to a bar. And he's blaming this on the producers. He said the producers had him go to a bar and the producers made him have a drink.
What?
Dead on. The producers made him relapse. And I said, okay. And I said, why would they force you to a bar? Force you to like pretend drink? And he's like, no, he's like, so they made me have a sip. And he's like, at that point, I was so like over what was going on. And he's like, they were even offering me extra money to take a drink. I said, okay. Yeah. And so at that point,
at the end of the day, he's got to take some accountability for what he does.
Yeah. So he's saying they were offering me extra money. So that's the only reason why I did it. And he's like, but then he's like, of course, like, he's like, I don't know if you know, like alcoholism. I'm like, well, I don't. I was like, but I have a friend, that does. And he's like, yeah, he's like, ask that person. Like if they're offered money, like they're going to take that. I was like, I'm thinking my friend wouldn't, but he's like, so I did it. And he's like, just that taste. He's like, I did it. And he's like, and then he's like, I got drunk. And he said, that he told Bianca to come pick him up. On the way home, he gets belligerent with her. And he's laughing about this. He's like, I got so trashed. He's like, I jumped out of the car. He jumped out of the car while she's driving because he's plastered.
I was going to ask about that because I saw that in the text.
Yeah. So he jumps out of the car. It's just an absolute show, among other things. And he's saying like that's what did it. The show went, and like when they get back, they put this chair, because it's all like a setup kind of thing for them. Mm-hmm. And he's just being belligerent towards her. He said, yeah, she's being calm and not just, she's done. He said like, yeah, she was done at this point. He's like, he was happy. And that's when she like, started trying to get her car together, everything. And he's like, just being an absolute jerk to her. She just like, she said, like, he's telling her like, trying to provoke her. Right. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, he's like, from what I can remember, he's like, yeah, I'm calling her names. He's like, I'm being awful towards her. And he's like, she wouldn't do what the producers were saying for her to do, which was like react. She's like not reacting. And
he seems like the type that he kind of gets off on people reacting. That's what I've heard from other people. Like he likes to kind of intentionally hurt people and see how they react.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just listened to everything that night. Like the first night, I was just like, okay. He just kind of like threw up his entire life on me. And I was like, well, like I have to go. Let it go that night. Literally, like, I mean, I gave you my entire call list. So you could see, like, I wasn't really the one calling him. Like, it was just back-to-back calls from him, and a lot. So yeah, the very next morning, just text messages, and then him saying, which you saw, like, you know, he decided the very next day that he was done talking to all these other, you know, females and this and that. He only wants to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, let's see how this plays out. Because literally, I have nothing, like, I don't have anything to gain. You know, it's not like, oh, I get to be on TV or on bloggers and this and this and this. Like, it's kind of like when I thought he was a good person. And I thought, okay, like, we'll see how this works out. Like, we'll see. Like, maybe this TV thing was faked. Maybe it's this and that. But at this point, it's like, if you see a fire, you kind of want to warn people there's a fire.
Yeah.
And you want people to see, hey, don't go towards this fire. Like,
do you feel like so you feel like he's different than from what we see on TV in real life?
Yeah. I mean, that's literally why I sent you everything, like beginning to end, because it's like, here's all of this, garbage, and the call logs and everything. Because it's like, my friend finally was like, you know what? Why don't you watch like all of their stuff, like Bianca and Daniel's, all of their stuff? And when I did, I watched all of it. And I was like, that is exactly what he did to me. Like, I mean, after I think like a week, he started saying out of nowhere, and my son is living with him, and he, out of one day, he had to like go, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, all right, love you. And I'm like, what? Like, I stopped and I was like, wait, do you know what you just said? He's like, yeah. He's like, I love you. And I'm like, okay. And I hung up. And that whole day he said it. And by the end of the day, you know, I sent him, which you saw, like an AI thing of like what it means, like what love means. And then I told him, I said, I think you're so damaged that you don't know what love means. Like, you have to break it down. And at that point, he argued with me that he's in love with me, or he loves me, but he's not in love with me. And I said, that's cool. I said, but if you don't know what it means, I said, then you don't need to be saying it to me. And he's like, well, you can have that though. And I was like, no. I said, because like a mother can carry her child and still say that she is in love with her child, even if she hasn't met her child. And he's like, I never thought about that. And I'm like, because you don't know what love is. Like, you're gone.
It just seems like he was like love bombing, like kind of like he was doing with Bianca.
Exactly.
So how many times did you guys see each other while you guys were together?
We never met. He went out of his way by the third day talking, which he would, as soon as he knew I was awake, he would FaceTime me. And he'd stay on FaceTime throughout that day. He would stay on FaceTime with me while he's working out, brushing his teeth, going to the bathroom. He'd stay on the phone with me while he goes to the bathroom, in which he sits while he pees, that's weird. But girl, I'm not even playing. He even like on, when he does his live, he even announced that, like, I can't even make that up, that he's like, yeah, everyone, he's like, I sit when I pee. It's like, way to go. But yeah, so he would stay on like FaceTime with me, like waking up, and all the time he would get off as if he had like a meeting to go to, and then he would text me.
So he wasn't working during this period?
No, he got fired. He got fired from that moving job because his boss was seeing that he looked like he was on meth, and even was sending those text messages, and I got a hold of those text messages. And like, you know, I think it's his sister that still refuses to speak to him. His ex that has his child, he's still not allowed to have any contact with his child. And it speaks for itself when you know, you get out of prison and Bianca's there, you know, your mom and dad are there, and the cousin, which he's not, but no one else wants to have any contact with you. And it's because you burned that bridge. And everyone kind of thought it was like, you know, Bianca, but like I'm a person outside that bubble, and he did the exact same thing. Like the third day, he was talking to me about doing an interstate compact to move here. It's like, yeah, I'm like, well, wait a minute. And he started asking about, you know, like with my family, like what do my parents do? What do I do? Like what, you know, after he saw my Instagram, you know, he saw like who follows me, you know, like all the blue checks I have, you know, and it's like, why does that matter? You know, it's, yeah. I was like, wait a minute. And yeah, he started talking about like interstate compact coming here.
Oh, wow.
On the third day. And I was like, yeah. And then my son moved in with him. And yeah, it's not a good situation right now.
How long has your son been living with him?
Since the third or fourth day.
Third or fourth day. And how's that been going? Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So he, I believe the third day, my son called me at like midnight, and my son was frantic because he was living with his friend, and his friend's mom had this huge issue. And so my son ended up having to leave the house, and he lives in Arizona also. He's 21. And my son just called me really upset, scared. And Daniel was like, oh, well, he can come here. And I said, are you sure? Like, you know, I don't know. And I was really scared. He's like, no, it's cool. Like, I have this open room. Sure enough, Daniel didn't have an open room. As soon as my son got there, there was already somebody in that other room. And it was just sort of weird. Like, they both had to sleep, like, in the living room. And my son had to sleep on the floor, like on like little pillows of something. And it was just an odd situation. And then the next day or two, Daniel introduced him to this 49-year-old man that Daniel has been in prison with. And come to find out, like Daniel, you know, has had a relationship with that person in prison. But does drugs. And my son, 3 nights ago, was at this 49-year-old man's house, drunk, extremely drunk. I couldn't reach my son for hours, and Daniel was not answering his phone, refused to answer his phone because I was scared to death for my son. But this 49-year-old man finally got a hold of my son, got him on FaceTime, and this 49-year-old man is like right next to my son, just like grooming him. And my son finally admitted to my dad yesterday that yes, this man was like hitting on him, giving him alcohol, wanted to give him drugs. And my son was just like, you know, I don't understand why my mom was so mad. I'm grown. And it's like, no, you're 21. Like, you don't understand when you're in danger. And
this is Daniel's current roommate right now.
Yeah, my son is his roommate. Daniel's not even having my son pay rent, but he's letting him be there. My son now has a room, but he's letting him hang out. He wants him to hang out with this guy, Javier. Like, he encourages it. And it's a very weird situation. And I don't know what's happening there. And it scares the hell out of me, for sure.
Yeah, that is scary. And is this the apartment that Daniel was living in with Bianca?
Yes. And That's it. That's the one. And Daniel actually didn't have enough money to pay rent, so he asked production to front him the $1,500 just a few days ago. So he doesn't have enough for his bills.
He was just on, somebody just messaged me right before we did this and told me that he was just on TikTok live a few hours ago, allegedly acting like he needed money, and he claimed, well, somebody told me that like multiple females band together and sent him money and he got over like $200.
Yeah. He's freaking out because I messaged production and let them know that he broke his NDA. And so by breaking that, he's going to end up being forced to repay that $1,500. And so he's freaking out, you know. In the last message he sent me, he said that I'm an idiot and I'm poison. And it's like, I'm not the poison. It's like it's almost like he's pimping my son out. And I'm wondering if like what he has planned with this Javier person of like,
Yeah, what has he told you? Like, has he been intimate with other men in his life?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, so when he was starting his OnlyFans, I didn't like that. I didn't like the sound of it, but what am I going to do? And so when he said he's going to start an OnlyFans, first he said like he's not going to be taking his clothes off, that he would just, look at like, just like pictures that looked, revealing, but not really showing anything. Said, okay. Then he said my son was in the background and he started asking my son to help him with his OnlyFans. And I think that's a little perverse. And I said, no. And my son, I said, great. I was like, why don't you do Furry Fridays? Right? Just kind of like disgusted and joking. And my son said, yeah, there you go. Why don't you go ahead and get like a butt plug, right? With a fluffy tail, like a foxtail. And Daniel seriously, like, was serious and said, yeah, he's like, as long as it's not a huge one.
okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's just like, what's happening here? And then I learned from another person that, yes, that when Daniel was with Bianca, he actually went and left her and made her think that like he was looking at like jobs and stuff like that. And in reality, like he was leaving the house and he was going and getting money from trans women and men.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. And I mean, in a text message, you can see me saying that to him. And he doesn't deny it. He literally just gets mad at me for saying it. It's just, that's like his past. And I was so angry about what was happening with my son. Cause he's not being a good, he's not protecting Cameron. And instead he's using like anybody that comes in his path, he uses all because it's money to him. It's just,
he's got ulterior motive for whatever he's doing.
Everything he does. And like when we first got together, just even like the first 4 or 5 days, it was, he's like, oh, I have to go to this Christmas party. Like everything out of his mouth is a lie. There's something attached to it. Like, so it was a Christmas party. The next thing I know, like within like an hour, it's a text message, like what I sent you. 'Cause like everything, I want everyone to believe me. That's why I sent you everything. And there was a text message of, I'm at a strip club.
Yes,
and I'm like,
all these text up too as we.
Yeah. And it's a, text message, I'm at a strip club. And, and then he's like, if you don't like this, you're not comfortable with this, let me know. And of course, like, you saw, like, I'm angry, like, but I'm not gonna go off. So I'm just like, I'm getting out of the bath, like, cause I'm trying to like, just take it in of like, do I even need to like say anything to this? I'm gonna let him try to make a common sense decision at this.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't have a lot of that, I found out. So, you know, I just said, you know, because I was angry and I was like, you know, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Like, you know, it was just kind of like, I need to kind of walk away from this situation. And then it was like after that, like, you know, I'm conflicted. And I kind of saw that. And I'm like, you know, what are you, after a little bit, I was like, what are you conflicted about? And then it was the gaslighting after that. It was, well, my exes, you know, are controlling or something like that. So it was
Yeah.
the turn of like, if I sit here and tell him I'm upset, then now I'm controlling. And so it was like I'm boxed in. So, you know, the next day when I spoke to him about this and let him know, like, hey, first you tell me you're here, you know, then it's if I tell you, like, I do want you to leave, which he said he did leave, but what he left out at that point was that he actually didn't leave. He stayed. He said he was there with like a roofing company. Like, no. But he did stay. He got 2 lap dances, and also while he's getting his lap dances, he got hard and was calling them baby. So it's like, there we go. You
Yeah.
know? So, you know, that's why you see after that, there's like multiple apologies and I'm sorry, I completely understand what you're saying. So it was like multiple things throughout those text messages. That's why I sent you that, of him just constantly, you know, screwing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then that last day, you know, of that night, he just like disappears and he goes just MIA, which is not like him. And then he says, we've been having problems for 3 nights. We were not. Like, what happened is all of a sudden he tells me he got like pain pills or muscle relaxers. And I was like, well, no. I was like, you need to tell your parole officer. And he's like, oh, that's true. He's like, I'll do that right now. And he's like, texting her. And I'm like, well, you're supposed to call her. Oh, well, oh, that's true. Like, I'll call her later. Okay. And go ahead.
Oh no, I'm
Okay.
listening.
And so yeah, he says he did that, which before you get something like that, you have to get that approved before you even take them.
Yeah.
And so that first night he takes them, he takes 3 of them. And that's the picture that I showed you, you know, of him just like out of it. He's so gone. It's crazy. And that's the night that he lost his job from the moving company. And that's when I believe it's Gary said, you know, he was done because he was acting like a prima donna. He just wouldn't show up for jobs. He was trying to pick and choose which ones he wanted. And I'm on FaceTime with him while he's doing this. And he was like, I can't believe he's acting like, and he's slurring his words everywhere. And he's like, I can't believe that he's acting like this. He's like, I got him on the show twice. And it's like, who cares?
And he
like,
got you a job. You should be grateful.
Yeah. And so that's how he's acting. He's so full of himself that he's just like, I got him on there twice. And at this point, he's literally like he's swaying like this and is just like, and I'm like staring at him. He's trying to make food after this. He's trying to cut up a tomato. He couldn't find the tomato for like 10 minutes. He's all over the place. And I'm like, I can see the tomato where I was on FaceTime. And I'm like it's there. It's right there. But yeah, so he's not sober. He claims up and down on live, I'm sober. Oh, da 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 da. Like while throwing his crotch in these women's faces just to get like money, like galaxies and dolphins, right? Thrown at him on live. And so he's doing that. You know, he's just like, he even calls himself, like in those texts that I showed you, he calls himself a hooker, a cheap hooker.
I almost wonder if he is, that you told me he's going to get money from France and stuff.
But yeah, he's not sober. He's taking muscle relaxers, you know, pain pills. He tells my son all the time, yeah, he's like, I know. He's like, yeah, he's on different things and he knows how to fake a drug test. And I'm like, great. You know, I know people say that, but I've seen him take these muscle relaxers. It's that tizanidine, it's 4 milligrams. And so he's doing that. He says his probation or parole officer knows he's getting high. He's taking capsules of something that makes him just gone. He's all over the place. And I mean, my level of had it was reaching its point already until like that last night when you've read my text of like, done. And then him telling me he's setting boundaries with me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, I'm the whole time I'm like, don't gaslight me. You know, I'm like, I've watched you do this to other people. And I'm like, at this point, you know, I did that little gif of this, you know, and he's like, I don't like this side of you. And it's like, no, you just never had anybody call you out on every single thing. I'm like, the strip club, all of that, I'm done.
How old are you?
So I'm 42.
Okay.
So I'm definitely not going to put up with somebody's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I've had it.
Maybe that's why he would try to get with someone like with Bianca, you know, because usually, you know, if somebody's not ready for somebody to really push them and hold them accountable, they'll go for girls that are a little bit younger.
Yeah, I was just, you know, him trying to, I think what he saw with me was that, you know, I have my life together and I have like multiple things like just handled, set, and he, you know, he kept asking me, like I said, like the people that I have in my life, you know, oh, like, you know, do you still do like the exotic car rallies? Do you still do this? And I'm like, I do, but like, what does that matter for you? You know? And the fact, like, you know, that I was going to bring this mess, like this person that's just, he's a chameleon, and around my family, that would have been a disaster. I mean, he literally got approved for a pass of 9 days. And the only reason that this started, I mean, it was going to start because I already told him I needed to speak to him, but I had a person on TikTok reach out to me and I was going to ignore it, but she said he is looking at coming over my house for New Year's Eve. And I deleted it, whatever. Then she sent another message saying, I need to show you something. And so we went on my Instagram. She showed me a picture of his number, like they're messaging each other on their phones. And it's his number saying, like, I can't wait to see you, babe, like on New Year's Eve. And then she's saying, yeah, he's saying he's going to go see a friend in Colorado.
There's no like that with the number and everything.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm done. I talked to my son, and my son, he has my son so programmed. My son was saying, no, mom, like I message girls for him. Like, and I was like, Cameron, I was like, what did you say then? I was trying to get my son, like, then what'd you say? My son's like, no, it's on TikTok. I'm like, oh, so you didn't message girls on his phone? I might have. I'm like, really? What'd you say? You know, my son's trying to cover for him. God bless him. And I was like, yeah. I was like, this is what happened. He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that. I was like, Cameron, stop. Like, this guy's poison. He's awful. He's, you know, he's toxic. And then sure enough, you know, I try to question him about it that night. And I'm like, I need to talk to you. And he won't answer. So I edit the message and I said, never mind, like, you know, NM heart. And all of a sudden I get like that huge heart, you know, emoji, like face thing. And yeah, so he wouldn't answer me, turns off his phone, just shadiness. And then he tried to make me the problem.
You guys had each other's location before that?
He never had mine. He tried to, like I said, he tried to gaslight me by sending me his location like 5 hours later. I've never asked for it. I've never asked for his passwords. I'm not that kind of toxic person. You know, I could care less about seeing his messages because he could edit that, you know, be like, delete. I don't care. But yeah, he's like, I've offered you my passwords. I don't care. Like, you're obviously messaging girls on your phone. Like, stop, you know? But yeah, so he gave me his location 5 hours later when
Yeah.
he's home. It's
Too
like,
little too late.
like, stop, dude. But yeah, that's when I was like, I don't care. And then he's like, you heard the messages, like I played them for you of him sounding completely out of it. And he's like trying to tell me, I'm all right. I'm not upset with you. It's like, upset with me? Like, who are you talking to? And then he's like, I tried to call him then. He wouldn't pick up still. And then after that, telling me, we will talk tomorrow. And then you could see me absolutely aggravated saying, no, fuck that. Like, until you speak to me, like, if you try to talk to me tomorrow, like, we're done. And then sure enough, he didn't talk to me. Like, I literally, like, played music on it, and I went through and deleted him off all social media and everything. And like, I don't need a person like that in my life. That's not fun for me. Like, he's absolutely trash.
When was the last time he did reach out?
That was, I think it might have been today. The last thing he said to me was that I was poison. Oh, I'm an idiot. He said, you're an idiot and poison, something like that. And I just laughed. Like,
did he ever ask you for money while you're with him?
No, he would always hint it on FaceTime.
That's what he was doing on TikTok. He wasn't like, what I was told, I didn't watch it, but they acted like he wasn't like directly saying, oh, send me money, but he's like, oh, I need this real bad. This is going to get off and all this.
That's what he does. He will repeatedly, like, every time we are on FaceTime, he will sit there and he will say, man, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. And, like, man, I just really need this money for this. And like, it's that thing of just constantly bringing up money. And he does that on his live too. He's like, somebody will throw like a rose at him and he's like, oh, thanks, Tiffany. He's like, I really need that money. You got to pay those bills. It's like, just stop with that begging. Like, it's like, you're 31, 32 years old. You're a grown man. Like,
did he ever tell you what he meant about that spaghetti comment with Bianca?
Yes. So it's kind of ridiculous. And I actually had to warn him in a text message too, after I got him off all of my things. So every single live, and then he also was telling me in FaceTime. But so in FaceTime, I even asked him about the spaghetti thing, because I thought that was like the most immature scene I had ever seen in my life. About him, like, talking about her body, which I don't know how she didn't slap him. But so, I asked him about that, and he was like, yeah, he's like, because it smelled like rotting spaghetti. And he's like, just her body. He's like, it looked disgusting to me. And then I asked him, I'm like, well, then why did you continue sleeping with her?
Yeah.
And he said, well, he's like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just out of prison. He's like, I would have slept with anything. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, then he starts complimenting me. And I told him, I was like, I said, we're not talking about me. I said, I could care less. I said, I'm a normal human being. I said, her though. And I said, why did you continue? And then he stops me. He plays victim very quick. And he goes, I don't want to talk about this. Like, it's really upsetting me. This boy will break into tears as quick as you can think. I mean, I had to walk him off a ledge every day because he thinks, like, if you hit a nerve with him, or a so-called nerve with him, he plays that victim card like you have no idea. And he does it with women because he thinks that, like, we're gonna be like, oh, come here, right?
Play on their emotions.
Yes. And so he'll sit there and be like, I have like so much going on. And he does. He'll actually like sit there and try to do like the fake tears. I've watched him like get himself in a blanket with Bianca's pink robe on. Like, I'm not playing. Like, pink robe, blanket, and he goes like this. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Need the doctor.
he does. He's like ridiculous. He will like, I'm like, what? Like, are you a man? Stop it. It's like, he does, but he will do this like facade, and he does it for like females. Like, because if a man saw it, he wouldn't do it because like no one would believe it. He does it for females so that he can get that like support to like reel them in. And it's the craziest thing I've seen. And I've had to sit there and I do this, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm just kind of like, what's happening here? But yeah, he has talked about her body in so many inappropriate ways that I was literally distancing myself to the point where, because I was like, man, if I get on this guy's bad side, he's going to do the same to me. Mm-hmm. And I sent him a text saying, if you talk about my body, if you talk about me, and I said, just FYI, I said, I will slap you with a lawsuit so hard because that is slander. And I said, that's harassment. And I hopefully, Bianca knows that too, because every single live he brings up that spaghetti comment. Mm-hmm. And if somebody else brings it up, he will sit there and say, yeah, that's rotten spaghetti. It looked like spaghetti. He's like, and he'll sit there and go, I didn't even know like where it was like this. Like who raised him like that? Like,
yeah, I thought you meant like the feeling, but it's even worse from what you're telling me.
He does. He talks about the smell. He talks about how it looks, how her body looks. He degrades her on every level, on every, he degrades in a horrid way. And it's just, I can't even imagine. Like,
do you feel like he was using her when he got with her, like just for the money, or do you feel like he really liked her?
I feel like he, as soon as he found out about the money, which he has said that, he brought up and I don't want to say how much she has, because I know how much she has, and it floored me, his comment, because as soon as he told me how much she has, and I was like, that's awesome, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I seriously thought it was more. It's like, you have nothing.
Yeah.
And he puts her down for that. And I think it's more he's jealous that he couldn't get to it. Because she literally put that boundary up and wouldn't let him. I think he really thought that he was going to get out and be able to have what he wanted. And because she put that boundary up, and here's the other thing. Okay, so the ring, right? Everybody, I think, thought, because I've seen so many comments, especially in the live that he does. Everybody thought that because of what he says, which is a lie, everybody thought that, that she was ungrateful for the ring and everything. The ring that he actually bought, was extremely cheap. It wasn't from wherever the show showed him buying it from. Mm-hmm. He never wanted to give her that ring. The production made him give her that ring that day. He didn't want to at all.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, it seemed like a big part of their storyline was about that ring. Well, now it makes sense because he really didn't even have a good explanation for why he was giving it to her when she asked.
So,
tripping over his words.
That's what that was. That's why he had that horrible little look on his face. That's why he was that's why production made him give that ring. And so right before then, he told me flat out that he had actually hyped her up that day and told her I have such a good surprise for you. You're going to love this. So that's why she had that reaction. He made her look horrible. Mm-hmm. And that's why that's why she was like, what, what is this? Is because he set her up that day. He
Oh.
absolutely set her up that day. And I was just like, he's telling me this, and I was like, wow. And then he tries to tell me, he's like, don't worry, baby, I'm gonna get you such a better ring. And I went, like, my whole face was like,
yeah, you are not ready for marriage, buddy.
I'm thinking like, I've been married before, and I'm thinking like, I have a really pretty ring, I'm like, I'm okay. Like, yeah. I couldn't even imagine him giving me a ring. Like, I'm okay. But yeah, that's what he did. He set her up that day, and to make her look like so ungrateful. And and then he set me up on top of it. He had me go on his live and bring up that ring situation, and then he told me about the ring situation after the live, so that I was sitting there like completely oblivious to what happened, and saying like, yeah, like if somebody gave me a ring, like I'd be grateful. Like I looked like an idiot.
Kind of looked like he had his back, like he has Daniel in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what happened with the ring. Like that's why she was like, what is this? And like, why doesn't it fit? That's why he did all that. Like he got her. He got her. And like right before like production would be there and everything, he would like get her like all lovey and everything like that, and then act like, like a jackass.
Damn.
He was like, yeah, he's like, no, he's like, yeah, I'd get her like all cuddled and everything and all nice. And he's like a production show, and he's like, then I'd be like this. Like, what are you doing to her?
It was like craving attention because he was so on and off with her. It sounds like
that's what it was.
Well, is there anything else really that you can think of that you want to talk about?
I mean, like I said, I just wanted, like, because I did reach out to a few girls on TikTok just to tell them to stop wasting their money on him. Like, seriously, you're giving, you're pretty much giving like an ad money to go buy things he shouldn't. And two, this is an awful person. Like, I'm trying to, like, as a female, like, right, like, trying to tell other females, stop. Like, it's like I was saying, like, you see a fire, you're trying to warn other people about a fire. Like, it's like, step away from the fire.
Well,
like,
and you said he just got that $1,500 advance a few days ago or something. Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
And he just got done with his season. Him and Bianca, I think they're on more episodes this season than any other couple. Like I think there's maybe 1 or 2 weeks they weren't on. So every Friday he was getting paid at least 2 rags. So it's like, okay, what happened to all that money?
That's what I'm saying. The money is going like to other things, I'm telling you. Yeah. And it's not good. And so like him trying to say like, oh, it's for bills. It's like, no, I'm trying to like warn these women, stop wasting your money, especially like it's Christmas time, like spend it on your family, spend it on yourself, not to this man that like, no. And like I said, I have nothing to gain. Like it's not like being on like, your stuff, anybody else's stuff, nothing. Like, people can see my Instagram. Like, I have followers. I don't need followers. Out of the kindness of my heart, I'm trying to warn people from this man. Like, Bianca, she got, like, a bad rep. And, like I said, I don't even know her. And this guy's bad. He's bad news.
But now you feel for her. And now you can kind of see where she's coming from now after dealing with him.
Yeah. Like, it's just, it's horrible. Like I said, I already sent an email to the producers about his NDA, because you saw for yourself. Yeah. He literally gave me his NDA. Like, I didn't ask for it. Like, I was like, here's this in my lap, and that shouldn't have. This guy will do anything and everything to get somebody's attention, and attention means money to him.
Yeah, and feel important.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to definitely keep us updated if you hear back from them.
Yes, if I do, trust me, you'll be the first person I reach out to.
Okay, well, where can people follow you at and find you at?
Yeah, it's Brittany, the underscore Fallon, Phelan. So I'm
Okay.
easy to find, and it's public. So
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and speaking your truth and everything. And I think we got a better idea of who Daniel really is now after talking to you.
definitely. And if you need anything from me, I mean, you always know where I am. So yeah.